that question. This is how they consistently answer that question. But there's like a footnote in the second volume of the New Critique, and I was debating with my thesis supervisor, Dr. Hertzema, about that point, and Hertzema pointed to this footnote as, I kind of took it as Dooyeweerd making my point. Hertzema understood it otherwise. But I actually thought that one spot, he pretty much says that. He's talking about the state supporting other societal spheres and other activities. And then the footnote says, I should have it exactly quoted. It says something to the effect of, but remember, taxation is coercive and different from, voluntary financial support. And I think right there he's saying, look, that as soon as you try to support through tax-based support, you are stepping outside of the state.
I think we have time for, let's say, 2 final questions.
Okay, I wasn't looking at.
And I see Jonathan Chaplin's been raising.
Okay, I'd love to take that question. Yeah, please.
First of all, say that I compliment you on presenting a lucid summary of Dooyeweerd's highly complex social theory in the space of 30 minutes. That itself.
Thank you very much. Can I get your official blurb?
Many people can do that. But just to press the same point, I think where I would press it further is at the point where you said that Dooyeweerd, if a social institution does not share the same qualifications as the state, such as the school, then it doesn't have any competence to regulate that institution. And I think that's not true. I think that's certainly not what he says. In fact, he says the opposite. If you look at his discussion, not just of the qualifying function of the state, but the task of the state, what the state concretely does in promoting its juridical function, you get a whole list of activities, which includes even things like supporting the arts.
Well, I'm trying to say that the quote-unquote regulation that the state performs is intrinsically limited to something of a public legal character. So I'm not saying it doesn't regulate, I'm saying all its regulation is limited to that, and therefore to use its coercive power to fund violates, it's not in other words, the coercive power is in terms of public legal, so it can only fund its own public legal regulation, not funding the inner life of other spheres.
I think he doesn't draw that dichotomy that you just did, because I think you're operating with too narrow a conception of public legal, and legality and juridicality and justice. That does include, I wouldn't particularly use the word redistribution, that's not a word that he particularly favors.
Right.
But it does involve balancing multiple legitimate claims, rights, duties, burdens across society as a whole. So I think you're quite right to say that he does not like the idea of common good for the whole society. In fact, he has a regular critique about that. But the term public justice is really a stand-in for the common good. And it actually covers at least a degree of activities that would otherwise be categorized under the promotion of the common good.
Well, maybe it comes down to, I'd like to discuss it more particularly with you, but and maybe that quote that Hertzema and I disagreed over might be decisive, but perhaps it comes down to defining more precisely the meaning of that public legal qualification, right? So that's the way to do it.
Anyone has a very short question, with a minute or two left.
Brief question?
So if I understand your account of Dooyeweerd, if the parents are responsible for either providing or paying for the provision of the education of their own children.
Well, I try to say he distinguishes a parental educational task from any schooling whatsoever. They're
But
distinct.
education as we generally understand. parent must either provide it or pay for it. Is that fair?
Well, see, I guess, but he's saying there's a parental educational task.
I get that. I understand.
They're either going to provide or pay for, but they can't even give that to a school. A school can't do the parental educational
I get
task that he's
that.
talking about.
I'm not talking about, moral education.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm just talking, math, algebra.
But see, that's different.
So,
but
okay. So if you have an irresponsible set of parents who refuse to give their children, math education, let's say, or refuse to pay for it, what's the role? What's your account of Dooyeweerd's response to that? How do we educate those children in how to do arithmetic and how to give change?
There are, again, I can just re-quote myself. There are multiple injustices that the state has no competence to address.
So you're advocating ignorant children. Is that what you're saying?
I support ignorance. Yes. Let me put it this way: the majority of injustices in this world and in our society that you and I have responsibility for, the state has no responsibility for. We just have to understand that. It doesn't mean no one has responsibility for them. It doesn't mean society, different spheres of society can't do anything about it or shouldn't. They can and should. It's just not the state's job. That's all we're saying. That's all me and Dooyeweerd are saying.
Well, great. Thank you very much.